وإذا قانونيا عندهم وإذا جاء قانونيا يقول لك
Hi, good morning. I'm testing my mic and video.
Recording in progress.
Okay, hello everyone. Masa al khair. I'm Nesreen Hussein. I'm associate researcher at the University of Bern, and I have the pleasure of chairing the first session this afternoon, which is a very rich session, and it's titled Global Crisis, Neocolonialism and Resistance. And we will follow the same order as indicated in the program, and we will take questions at the end. And we will try our best to keep to time, which is 20 minutes for each presentation. And we start with the first speakers, Joanna Ruth Evans. And Joanna is joining us online. Joanna on the screen.
Good morning. Are you able to hear and see me
Hello,
over there?
Joanna. We can't see you just yet.
Okay. I think my
Yes,
video is on. So maybe it'll take a
yeah,
couple moments.
we can see you now. Hello.
Hi.
Joanna is a theatre artist and performance scholar from Cape Town, South Africa. And Joanna's presentation is entitled Up the Unmarked Path, Chuma Sopotela's Search for the Opposite in Ndlulamthi from 2018. And I hope I got the pronunciations correctly, Joanna.
That was very impressive. Are you able to see my slideshow right now?
Yes, we can.
That I'm sharing. Okay. Thank you very much, and good afternoon to everybody in Tangier. I'm very, very sorry that I wasn't able to join in person, and I'm very grateful to Professor Khalid Amin and to the conference organizers for accommodating me on Zoom. I'm going to speak about this performance by Chuma Sopotela. I'm going to spend quite a bit of time speaking about the process and how it connected to the environment in the town of Makanda, South Africa, where it was set, and to the long history of colonial land theft and ongoing dispossession. So I'll begin by showing a short video, and please let me know if you're unable. There is sound, so if you're not able to hear the sound, please let me know.
Joanna, we can't hear a sound.
Okay, I think in the interest of time, I better just let you see the continue with the visual. Is the video still showing?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Is it still playing?
It's paused right now.
Okay, let me stop and begin again.
Okay, it's back on. Thank you.
just check if you were able to hear the audio after I took my headphones out?
We heard part of the audio.
Okay, so it did come on at that point. Okay, that's good to know. And you're able to hear me now? I'm just going to, are you able to hear me now?
Joanna, I was just told that if you send the organizers the link to the video, then they can try and show it from their end.
That's okay. I think we can continue. But thank you for that offer.
Okay.
There's images now, as long as you're able to see and hear me.
We can see a still image.
Okay, great. I'll stop sharing in a second, but I'll just show a few images. So that video you saw in Lulam is a short excerpt from Lulamti, which is a journey up a rocky hill, up this pathway you see here, atop which sits a monument to the 1820 British settlers. Okay. I think I'm going to just stop sharing the slideshow because from my side, it's not, when I'm trying to change image, it's not working. So I'm just going to speak and describe these images. So on the top of this hill that I described, there's this big brutalist brick building, which is a monument to the 1820 British settlers. This piece was performed just 3 times during the 2018 South African National Arts Festival. During the 2018 South African National Arts Festival in the Eastern Cape town of Makanda. Audience members are led up a footpath by performance artist Masabotela, as children improvise dances and songs and play games in the landscape. And the Sangoma Bongonekani, who you saw at the beginning, kind of pointing outwards, keeps watch in the hills. Voices and figures emerging from the landscape indicate that there's more going on than we can see and that it's not happening exclusively for our benefit. The songs and games are all in isiXhosa, weaving a tapestry of child's play, oral history, spiritual life, and revolutionary call spanning centuries. As Saputela pointed out when I interviewed her, this oral experience is something like what early settlers may have heard when first arriving in the region. At one point, a young boy steps onto the path in front of us. He takes headphones out of his pockets, slips them on, and begins to dance to music that we alone can hear. The dance is quick-footed, virtuosic, but casual. We hear only the shuffle and light out of his school shoes on a dusty path. Saputela watches silently, the intensity of her presence protecting him in the enjoyment of his dance. Without flourish, the boy runs off to join his friends, and we continue up the path. Later, we notice small structures glowing in the landscape, uncannily perfect 2-foot miniatures of the houses seen in Makanda's poorer areas, with corrugated iron roofs, warm electric lights spilling from their windows. Unlike the brutalist settlers' monument at the top of the hill, they capture attention through their diminutiveness. The miniature houses, like the silent dance, evoke in us a patient tentiveness that does not and cannot seek entry or occupation. We reach the top of the hill as darkness falls. The children are seated on a squat stand. They begin to sing a hymn, simple and circular. Saputela joins them and they clap faster and faster. The audience laughs, sensing that Saputela and the children are feeling out how to bring things to a close. The clapping reaches the climax and they excitedly run off into the darkness. Saputela remains and a child joins her. Bongonekani told me that this boy had been very shy throughout rehearsals, but 2 days before the festival, he told them that he wanted to sing. Kambili Klebua, now a theatre student at the University in Makanda, steps up to the mic and begins to sing. Interdisciplinary was initiated by a question so direct that it's almost taboo. After years of attending the National Arts Festival, Uma Saputela did not understand why the festival's mass injection of resources did not reach the majority of the local people of Makanda. Specifically, she asked why, year after year, the children who live in townships on the outskirts of town had only one available form of engagement with the festival: to rub white clay on their faces and perform on street corners in the winter cold for festival goers who might toss a coin into the tin can at their feet before hurrying on to the warmth of the theatre production. These children told Sabotella that their dominant association with the festival was collected and discarded when the visitors leave. Why was the abundance of creativity, resourcefulness, inspiration, and passion that characterizes the festival unable to reach the majority of children who live there? Why could they not be addressed or included? Having won a prestigious performance art award which provided support for the creation of a new production, Sabotella wanted to address this question from within the festival. She focused on the child street performers, not as the unfortunate excess to an otherwise coherent festival structure, but rather as the most heightened manifestation of an altogether integral exclusion. She did not merely seek to include the children in an exclusionary structure. Rather, she wanted to transform the performance environment into a deprivatized space antithetical to any form of exclusion. The children, she insisted, should continue doing what they always had: singing, dancing, and playing. It was the environment around them that needed to change. Through Interdisciplinary, we gain understanding of the scripting force of property in Makanda and South Africa, how it moves, how it feels, and what it does. This is inseparable from the region's long history of land displacement and dispossession as the stronghold of 19th century British settlement and Amaxhosa resistance, and later a stronghold of the African nationalist and Black consciousness movements against apartheid. Interdisciplinary manifested that which capital forecloses: collective experience unmediated by property relations. Pluma explained, this is a quote from my interview with Pluma, being an artist that went all the time to Makanda and having these kids, you throw a coin and they dance. I wanted a huge shift, the opposite. It was a deeper engagement between money and art. I wanted to feel a shift. I wanted to interrogate the feeling of someone giving. How do you give? End quote.
Joanna, apologies for interrupting you, but
Oh.
Can you raise the volume of your of the sound on your end so we can hear you better?
Okay. I'll try to take.
Or speaking up, perhaps it might help if you can. Thank you.
Are you able to hear? Does it sound better now?
Yes, it is better.
Okay, I think it's better without the headphones. Were you able to follow up until now?
Yeah, were you able to follow until this point? Yes, thank you.
Okay.
You can just carry on, please. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So the questions that animated Pluma Sabotella reveal how capital mediates the material and affective structure of any environment, determining the possibilities of movement and exchange, preparing one to consider certain possibilities and ignore others, to feel certain things and not others. Hence an art festival in which even those capacities that might be imagined as independent from capital, such as creativity, social connection, and mutual excitement, found it almost impossible to move beyond its mediation. Here, the practice of looking at festival productions is equally dependent upon a practice of looking away from child street performers. Sabotella hoped to transform this scene into its opposite, while remaining openly unsure of what the opposite might actually be. The logic of the opposite became a driving force at every level. When the festival wanted to arrange accommodation for her, she chose instead to rent a house on the outskirts of the township. When they offered transport, she declined, arranging local taxis instead. While the award promoted her as a solo performance artist, she insistently brought in collaborators, giving them free agency over the piece. Every step of the way, the opposite turned Sabotella toward that which the festival excludes.
even in those areas that might be assumed to be outside of performance, such as transport and accommodation. The most significant oppositional force was in her defense of the unknown. If the interaction typified by the tossing of the coin to the child street performer is known, scripted, and depressingly predictable, then its opposite necessarily needed to be unknown, improvisational, and emergent. Sustaining unknowing is oppositional to the production mechanics of an arts festival, and Sabotella needed to relentlessly defend it. She explained, quote, "Usually when you work with people, they want decisions, they want to know. And I'm like, what if you don't know? I don't know. But all I'm saying is let's move. The thing will move. Keep on making. It will all come together. It will show us what it needs to be. We're not here to dictate what happens." End quote. By sustaining unknowing, Sabotella released the environment from the expectations placed upon it, including capital's exclusions. In releasing the performance of the children on the street from the structures that overdetermined them as signifiers of poverty, an amazingly simple and obvious thing emerged through Mlulamti's workshop process: the fact that children want to perform. Uma Sabotella and Bongo Nekani went to Makanda 2 months ahead of the festival and set up a rehearsal space at a school in the township. While shopping at market one day, they heard singing and followed the sound to a rundown church in which a group of children was rehearsing, having entered through a hole in the fence. Sabotella invited them to join the project, and gradually others joined. There were never auditions. Anyone who wanted to participate was welcome. They held workshops daily, flowing between games, singing and dancing, free writing, meditation, and conversations on Hausa history, connecting the materiality of the surrounding town to its long history of war and land displacement. Nekani explained the importance of entering each day without a plan in mind. Quote, "I didn't structure anything. I didn't prepare, because these are kids, and the moment you come with a structure, they block. They easily block. I can't structure it." End quote. Nekani's responsiveness built the children's trust in him as someone who was not there to command them, but to share with them. Soon they were phoning Nekani and Sabotella ahead of rehearsals to ask when they could start, eager to get back into the exciting openness of the space. Nekani describes his spontaneous method in spiritual terms as a sacred capacity that is connected to his work as a sangoma. According to him, theatre, in providing a supportive environment for play, allows for an openness that is not only akin to, but inseparable from, spirituality. Sabotella also understands her artistic practice as spiritual. It is a matter of spiritual importance that she enters the creative process unattached to a fixed notion of what she's making, and therefore open to the revelation of the unknown. When the time came for Indlulamti to be joined by an audience, another challenge appeared. A performance audience is primed by certain normative expectations of their role. They'll be separate from the performance, that their focus will be frontally and visually oriented, that the performance is for them, that they will be able to extract some kind of cohesive knowledge, experience, or perspective from it. Even an audience that is well versed in site-specific performance art will expect that they'll come to know what they're watching. The dramaturgical challenge for Sabotella was an unusual one, not to meet her audience's expectations, but to defend the performance against them. Over the months of workshops, Sabotella and Nekani had defended unknowing against the arts festival's production mechanisms, creating and sustaining an environment for children's expression. Now audience needed to be included. As we stepped onto the rocky pathway, we were drawn into an environment in which we could not remain at a distance, watching the performance unfold for us as we abstracted knowledge from it. For instance, when the boy danced with the headphones, we accepted the unknown music that coexisted with our perception of him, and in so doing, we were drawn into a more intimate and joyful experience. His was similar to many dances we'd hurried past in the streets of Makanda. What was altered was the quality of our attentiveness, the time and space allowed for his dancing, and the relaxed pleasure he felt in sharing his skillful expression. In the play of sounds all around us, the figures moving through the hills without presenting themselves to us, the refusal of explanation from our silent guide, and the deep absorption of the performers in the quality of their experience, we as audience slowly learned to submit without expectation. expectation of explanation. Our eyes opened as they were taught to look without the expectation of knowledge, and therefore to sustain the unknown. After the performance ended and the children ran off into the night, they went into the dressing rooms in the monument. Here they were struck by their experience. Bongo Nikani remembers and explained to me, quote, "I did say that some of you will cry after the performance. They said, no, not us. But it happened like that. They cried and I asked them, what for? No, what I've experienced is beyond what I expected, they said. Then I said, okay, can you explain it? No. You see, because they were on another level." As Interdisciplinary audience departed, I lingered in the dark, sitting on a large rock, looking out over the town. It's not often that I've sat alone outside at night in South Africa, in a non-privatized place. The monument was behind me, but I was not on its grounds. The festival was around me, but I was not at the festival. When I left that rock and the darkness, I would drive in a private car to a restaurant where my presence was dependent on my capacity to pay for a meal. I wanted to stay on that rock because it felt different from anywhere I've ever been. With all my privileged access, I was mesmerized by this fleeting sense of being in a place that is not owned and where my access has not been bought. Indlulamti deep privatizes performance not only at the level of space, but of experience, releasing the audience from the possessiveness of their gaze, releasing the performance and performers from a host of production norms and demands. In so doing, it engages the fraught question of colonial land disposition from an unusual angle. In the article, Not Only Our Land, but Also Our Souls, Andile Kaitama asks, if land was more than just land, if land was more than just land, what then have Africans lost by being dispossessed of it? Moreover, can this other loss be named and fit into the established lexicon of the losses that can be repaired? Will these losses be repaired and satisfied with the return of the land? End quote. Shared between Kaitama's dilemma and Indlulamti is the impossibility of fully accounting both for what was lost and what has been sustained in the transition to direct colonial rule and its aftermath. The answer in both cases is always too much to account for. But in the impossibility of balancing the equation, the impossibility of the emotional and historical closure that Kaitama seeks, something is sustained. Indlulamti's careful derailment of the capitalized structure of the arts festival urges a shift in the question of land. Rather than forsaking the land as lost, they inspire a recognition of the complexity of an environment that is both always already there and therefore cannot be altogether lost, and is also always changing and therefore can never be wholly owned. Indlulamti shifts the land question from the ontological to the processual. How does the very fact of property constantly produce land as something that can be owned? And what social, spiritual, and creative practices evade or transform this production? While the material specificity of land is crucial, Nikani and Sabotele's imaginative and spiritual process also shows that deep connection to any material environment, even stolen, settled, or property land, can always be forged, as when Nikani taught the children to connect with their ancestors by drumming on the floor of a borrowed classroom. This complicates the return of the land, because what is at stake is not merely the return of stolen property, but the imposition of land as property. The anti-colonial resistance to this imposition endures, as when Abahlali Base Mjondolo, South Africa's largest land rights movement, rejected the government's 2025 land expropriation policy because it did not recognize communal title. Indlulamti cannot resolve the irresolvable, but it brings a social and sensual precision to the question of both what was lost through colonialism and what has been sustained, the endless variation and openness that is enabled through release from the private, including release from the possessive force of a theatre audience's gaze. Through Indlulamti, the dilemma that Kaitama lays out becomes simultaneously more ephemeral and more grounded. The release of the land from colonial settlement is everywhere possible and everywhere already ongoing, but it's also an endless labor without closure. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joanna, and especially for generously navigating the challenges of a mediated presentation. Our next presenter is Milja Glovic. Milja is professor in theatre and performance and head of theatre and performance studies at the University of Warwick in the UK. He's also an elected member of the executive committee for the International Federation for Theatre Research, or IFTR. Milja's presentation is entitled In Search of Lost Futures, Neocolonial Aesthetics Along the Silk Roads.
So there is a PowerPoint, so let's see if that's coming. There is no equipment here.
Recording stopped.
It's not projecting yet. Okay, good afternoon. Can you hear me? Okay. So I'll also start with thanks to Professor Khalid Amin and the organizing committee. It's a great pleasure to be here. I slightly changed the title, but the idea is the same. So this paper examines works by two